Before we begin, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Rain poured over the hospital's glass walls as people rushed inside. Umbrellas dripping, faces worried. In room 409 sat Ethan Blake, once the most powerful name in New York real estate, now confined to a wheelchair after a tragic car crash. He had everything: fame, wealth, and pride. Until the accident took the one thing money couldn't buy: his ability to walk. He had fired every therapist who promised a cure, lost faith in miracles, and shut himself away from the world. "No one can fix me," he'd say coldly to his nurses. That was until a girl, in torn jeans and an oversized hoodie, walked into his room one rainy afternoon. "Mr. Blake?" she asked softly. Ethan barely looked up from his laptop. "If you're another charity case, tell them to send you downstairs." The girl shook her head. "I'm not here for money. I'm here because you can help me." Ethan raised a brow, unimpressed. "Help you? I can't even help myself." She stepped closer, her eyes trembling but determined. "My sister's dying. She needs surgery, please. You're the only one who can afford it." Ethan gave a short, bitter laugh. "And what do I get out of saving your sister?" Her voice didn't shake this time. "I'll make you walk again." The words hit the room like thunder. For a second, Ethan stared at her as if she'd spoken nonsense. Then he laughed loudly. "You? You'll make me walk again? What are you, a doctor? A magician?" "Neither," she said quietly. "But I believe miracles start with people who refuse to give up." Ethan rolled his eyes. "You sound like every fake motivational speaker I've ever met." "Leave before security does." She didn't move. "Give me 1 week," she said. "If you don't see progress, I'll never come back." Ethan smirked, amused by her boldness. "Fine. Save my sister and I'll make you walk again. That's what you said, right?" "Yes." "Deal," he said sarcastically, knowing she'd never manage either. But that night, something in her words refused to leave his mind.
The next morning, Ethan's nurse entered his room with a confused expression. "Sir, there's a girl waiting outside again. Says she's your new therapist." Ethan almost laughed. "Let her in. I could use some entertainment." The girl walked in holding a worn-out notebook and a plastic bag of medical herbs. "You came back," he said dryly. "I thought people like you give up after one rejection." She smiled faintly. "I don't give up easily, especially not when my sister's life depends on it." Ethan leaned back in his chair. "You never even told me your name." "Lila," she said simply. "Lila Hart." "Well, Lila Hart," Ethan said with mock seriousness. "You have 1 week to prove your miracle. I'll even give you access to the best rehab room money can buy." She nodded and rolled up her sleeves. "I don't need luxury, Mr. Blake. I just need your trust." For the next hour, Lila examined his legs carefully, asking gentle questions about his pain, his accident, his failed surgeries. Ethan answered half-heartedly, his tone dripping with disbelief. "You're wasting your time," he muttered. "My nerves are dead." "Then we'll wake them up," she replied. Every morning for the next 3 days, Lila showed up early, bringing homemade therapy tools, herbal oils, and strange but calming breathing exercises. At first, Ethan mocked her, but something about her quiet persistence started to get under his skin. She treated him not like a patient, but like a human being. When he snapped at her, she didn't flinch. When he insulted her background, she only smiled. On the 4th day, she placed her hand on his shoulder and said, "Close your eyes. Imagine standing again. Feel the floor under your feet." "This is ridiculous," Ethan said, but did it anyway. A strange warmth spread through his body, unfamiliar yet real. "What are you doing to me?" he asked softly. "Making you believe," she whispered. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He kept replaying her words. She had no degree, no money, no power. Yet she carried something he'd lost long ago. Hope. On the 5th day, Lila came late, eyes red from crying. "What happened?" Ethan asked, his voice softer than he intended. "My sister's condition is getting worse," she said. "The hospital needs payment by tomorrow." Ethan hesitated, then looked away. "You really think saving me will save her?" "I think saving someone always saves another," she replied. Ethan stared at her, and for the first time in years, felt something move in his chest. Guilt. That night, Ethan couldn't get Lila's words out of his mind. "I think saving someone always saves another." He stared at his useless legs, remembering every doctor, every surgery, every failed promise. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. Not his friends. Not his fiancée who had left after the accident. Not even his father. The next morning, he called his assistant, "Find out which hospital Lila's sister is in, and pay their bills anonymously." The assistant hesitated. "All of them, sir?" "Every single one," Ethan said firmly. He hung up, surprised at himself. Later that day, when Lila arrived for the session, she looked more hopeful. "The hospital just called," she said, tears in her eyes. "Someone paid everything. My sister's treatment starts today." Ethan kept his expression blank. "Good for you," he muttered, pretending to be uninterested. But inside, something warm flickered. During therapy, Lila placed her hands gently on his legs. "Now try again," she whispered. Ethan sighed, frustrated. "Lila, it's useless. I told you, I can't feel anything. Just trust me. One more time." She guided his focus with soft, steady words, telling him to picture walking, to remember what strength once felt like. And then, a spark, a faint twitch. Ethan froze. "Wait, what was that?" Lila's eyes widened. "You moved." Your muscle responded. "That's impossible," he said, staring down. His heart pounded. "No, Mr. Blake," she said quietly. "It's happening." For the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel numb. That night, he found himself smiling without realizing it. He didn't tell anyone, not his nurse, not even his assistant, but deep down, he began to believe the impossible. The next few days became a turning point. Ethan followed Lila's guidance religiously. Every morning she arrived, her clothes still shabby but her determination shining brighter than any doctor he'd met. "Why do you care so much?" he asked one afternoon. "Because when you have nothing, helping someone gives you everything," she answered. Her words echoed in his heart. Slowly, he started lifting his legs, just inches, but enough to make him feel alive again. By the 7th day, Lila stood back, tears streaming down her cheeks as Ethan managed to shift both legs on his own. "You did it," she whispered. "No," he said, his voice trembling. "We did it." He looked at her differently now, not as a poor girl, but as someone who had given him back his purpose. Ethan's progress stunned everyone. The doctors who had given up on him now whispered in disbelief. His father called from overseas, his voice filled with cautious hope. "Son, how is this possible?" Ethan looked at the woman beside him and simply said, "Because someone believed when no one else did." Each day he grew stronger. He could now stand for a few seconds, trembling but upright. Lila cheered every tiny step as if it were a victory for both of them. Yet behind her bright smile, Ethan sensed something hidden, a shadow in her eyes whenever she mentioned her sister. One evening, as she packed her things, Ethan asked softly, "Lila, what really happened to your sister? You never told me." She hesitated. "She was in an accident. A car hit her while she was crossing the street. The driver never stopped." Ethan's chest tightened. "When was this?" 3 years ago, she said quietly. "Near downtown." Ethan's mind went blank. 3 years ago? Downtown. He remembered that night. The rain, the screams, the crash. His heart started to race. "Lila," he whispered, voice shaking. "Do you remember anything else? The car? The driver?" She shook her head. "They said it was a black sedan. Luxury model. No license plate found." Ethan's face went pale. That was his car. His accident. The one that paralyzed him. The one he'd tried to forget. He'd never known who the girl was. Just that she'd been taken away in critical condition. He'd lived with the guilt every day since. His throat tightened as the truth clawed at him. "Lila," he said softly, "your sister? She's the reason I ended up like this." She froze, confusion flashing across her face. "What are you talking about?" "The accident. I was the driver." The words hung heavy in the air. Lila's hands trembled. "No," she whispered. "You're lying." "I wish I were," he said, his voice breaking. "I didn't see her. I called for help, but I never found out what happened to her." Lila staggered back, tears streaming down her face. The man she had been helping, the man she'd grown to trust, was the one who had destroyed her sister's life. You knew all along," she screamed. "No," he said quickly. "Not until now. Please, Lila, believe me." But she couldn't. She turned away, shaking. "I came here to help you walk, not to face the man who broke my family." She grabbed her bag and ran out, leaving Ethan frozen in silence, his heart shattering under the weight of his own guilt. Ethan didn't sleep that night. The truth replayed endlessly in his mind. The headlights, the scream, the rain. He could still hear the sound of the impact, still see the face that had haunted his nightmares. And now he knew that face belonged to Lila's sister. He had spent years hating his own reflection, but knowing the full truth broke him completely. The next morning, his wheelchair sat untouched. He forced himself to stand. His legs shook, pain surged through him, but he refused to fall. "You owe her this," he whispered. Every step felt like punishment and redemption all at once. By the end of the week, he could take 10 steps unassisted. Not for himself, for Lila. He needed to face her again. When he finally found her, she was working at a small clinic in the poor district, helping children learn to walk. She froze when she saw him standing in the doorway. No crutches. No chair, just trembling determination. "Lila," he said softly, "I had to come." She turned away, her voice shaking. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," he said. "But I had to tell you something. I found her." She turned sharply. "What?" "Your sister," he said. "She's alive." Her eyes widened in disbelief. Ethan handed her a file, hospital records, photos, everything. After the accident, she was transferred to a rural rehabilitation center. She lost her memory. I've been supporting that clinic for years without knowing who she was. Tears streamed down. Lila's face as she flipped through the documents. "She's alive?" Ethan nodded, his voice breaking. "I visited her yesterday. She doesn't remember the accident, but she's walking again." Lila covered her mouth, sobbing. For a long time, neither spoke. Then she whispered, "Why are you telling me this?" Ethan took a deep breath. "Because you deserve to know the truth. And because I couldn't walk again until I faced what I'd done." Lila looked at him, standing there, trembling but upright, and felt her anger slowly melt into something else. Pain, forgiveness, hope. "You kept your promise," she said softly. "No," he replied. "You kept yours. You said you'd make me walk again. And you did." She laughed through her tears, shaking her head. "You're impossible." "Maybe," he said, smiling weakly. "But I'm also sorry for everything." Lila reached out, placing her hand on his arm. Ethan watched from a distance, tears in his eyes. He turned to leave quietly, but Lila ran after him. "Ethan," she called. He turned. "You can't just walk away now." He smiled faintly. "That's the first time. I've heard someone say that to me and mean it literally." She laughed, wiping her tears. "Come back tomorrow," she said. "The kids could use a story about a man who learned to walk again." He nodded. For the first time in years, his steps felt light. Not because he had healed completely, but because someone had forgiven him. Sometimes miracles aren't about standing. They're about finding the strength to face your past and still move forward.